I've copied our template as a map folder here, and we're inside this map folder. So the first thing to do is to do bower install angular-ui-map. Okay, that's installed. Notice that, of course, Angular is a dependency for this, but also Angular UI utils is a dependency, which our template already had, so it didn't have to install that. But you might be curious to know why Angular UI utils is a dependency of UI map, and rest assured, we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's begin by opening up our app.js file. Of course, the first step is to require our dependency, which is ui.map. Now, the second step, of course, is to get our script tags. So let's go over to index. And what we're going to do is copy our UI utils here, and we'll change this to UI map, and the file will be ui map.min. Now, because we're using Google Maps here, we also need to request the Google Maps library. And right at the bottom here, I'm going to go ahead and paste in another script tag. Now, for this, we're just using the Google CDN. This is the URL to the Google Maps library. Now, there's something important that we need to notice about this script tag. Right at the end here, we have a parameter which is callback, and the callback name here is on Google Ready. And this function, on Google Ready, or of course we could rename it whatever we want, will be called when this library has finished loading. And because we have to wait for this library to load, we do not want to load our Angular application until after this is already loaded. Now, by default, our Angular application will start running as soon as Angular is loaded and it looks for this ng-app directive. So what we need to do is remove this ng-app directive and instead manually bootstrap our app from inside of a function called onGoogleReady. So let's go back to app.js, and right at the top here, let's create a function called onGoogleReady. And now in here, what we need to do is Angular bootstrap. All we need to do is pass it the element that we want to bind the app to and the name of our application module. So what we need to do is start with document.get elements by tag name body, and we'll just get the first element there. Of course, there's only one body. And then we actually pass these as an array, and we're going to bind the my app module to the body. So as you can see, our module here, of course, is called my app, and this is basically the same thing as what we previously had here with the ng-app on the body. It's just now the app won't be started until the Google Maps library has loaded. Now, before we actually use our Google Maps directive here, let's create a few options for this map. So we'll say scope.map options, and this is an object. Now, there are many different map options that we can set, and I'll have a link to the Google Maps API documentation underneath this video. But for now, we're only going to use two options, and these two are the only required options. So the first one is center, and this is the latitude and longitude of where the map will be centered. So what we do is a new google.maps.lat-long, L-A-T-L-N-G, and then I'm going to paste in some coordinates here. And you can obviously choose whatever coordinates you want. These coordinates happen to be for the tallest building in the world, which is a tower in Dubai. Okay, so there's only one other required parameter, as I said, and that is the zoom level, and I'll just set that to 10. Okay, so now that we have some map options, let's go ahead and actually write our map directive. So inside of our controller div here, I'm going to create a new div, and then we use the UI-map directive, and we'll just call this my map. And then those options we set, we can do UI-options, and we can set map options. There we go, and remember that references this object that we just created right here. And there's one more directive I want to use, and that is UI.event. Now, UI event is the reason we need Angular UI utilities in this project. This is one of those utilities. Now, we didn't discuss it earlier in the utilities lessons because it really just duplicates native Angular behavior. It's just another way to add event handlers. But in this case, we want to add an event that Angular does not support by default, and that is the map-click event. So whenever we get a click on our map here, we want to call the add marker method, and we're going to pass it $event and $params. Now notice the syntax for UI event, we pass in an object with each key being an event type and the value being what to do when this event occurs. Now, of course, this could be any event in the browser, including key down or regular click or double click or whatever. So if you like this over the native event handling, feel free to go ahead and use it. All right, now there's only one other thing we need to do here, and that is to actually see our map, we need to give it a height, which is why we gave it a class. And we'll just give it a height of 400 pixels. There we go. Okay, so now we can focus our attention back on app.js. But before we do that, we should actually go ahead and see if this is working. If I open this up in the browser, you can see that it is indeed working. As you can see, we're here in Dubai, although at this zoom level, we can't really see the building very well. Let's go ahead and bump this up to, say, zoom 15. Now, if I refresh the page, It'll take a second, but you can see right here, it's the, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but it looks like the Burj Khalifa, something like that. Now notice this is just like Google Maps. I can go ahead and move it around. I can change the zoom level, satellite view instead. Let's see if Street View works. Looks like it does. I can go ahead and drop it right there. And here we are with Street View. Pretty impressive, eh? And there's the building right there. The other thing we wanted to do was add the ability to click on the map and drop a marker. Obviously, there's a lot more you could do with this. For example, you could store that marker data somewhere and do something more with it. But for now, we're just going to settle with creating a marker. So we have this add marker method that we need to call. So let's go ahead and create scope.addMarker. And to create a marker on our map, all we need to do is do a new google.maps.marker. And we need to pass it an object with two things. First of all, we need to pass it the map. You might recall we gave the map a name here when we said UI map is my map. That's the name on the scope. So we can say $scope.myMap. And the other thing we need to give it is the position that we want to put this in. And we can do params 0 dot, and we'll say lat long. And that is the latitude and longitude of where we clicked on the map. Now notice we're just creating a new object here. We're not actually doing anything with it. You'd probably want to push this into an array or save it to the server somehow, but this is fine. We can just go ahead and add it like this. So now if we come back, and I'll refresh the page again, and I should be able to click, and you can see we are dropping markers just fine. So that is a really basic look at using the Google Maps module. Obviously, we haven't done very much with it in this lesson, but I hope you can see that there's a lot of potential for building some really neat apps around Google Maps if you want to.